Welcome back to Louvre Line Live. We are on the fourth of our elemental weapons, the final of the elemental series, unless you count Spirit, the lamp, which is the Pantacle, not to be confused with the Pentacle. The Pantacle, the magical implement of Earth, and the final of the four elemental weapons that together form the Tetragrammaton. So, hello. My name's Jason Louvre. This is my channel about magic and the occult, and we are teaching all of the secrets of the esoteric, the transcendental, the mystic, the magical. For those who have ears to hear, there's not many of you. So you are very special. Remember that. We're not getting Andrew Tate numbers here, because this is a difficult subject that requires patience and an attention span, and it caring about something more than just materialism. Not a very popular topic these days, but believe you me, the reward is worth infinitely more. So make sure to like and subscribe, and please, everyone, consider joining the channel. And if you're not already signed up on the mailing list, please do. Start.magick.me. The link is in the description. You get a free 10-minute meditation that will blow your mind and then blow your mind's mind. It's phenomenal. Start.magick.me. We have lots of stuff coming up. We are working really hard. There are some big announcements coming. One of which is we're going to do a solstice event too, for those of you who are with us for the equinox event, of course. These are going to be quarter events. So I am working very hard on updates on the site, and Temple is working very, very hard on putting together these solstice working for you. So make sure that you're on the mailing list so you hear all about that. Okay, let's get into it. Before we start today's session, and I'm not going to spend too long on this, I just want to point out that, thank God, it appears, fingers crossed, that the Gaza war is over. It appears that Hamas and Israel have reached a peace deal, or at least a temporary deal, something to do a hostage exchange and fighting. Now, I don't know what's going to happen next. I don't think anyone does. But I just wanted to acknowledge that and kind of breathe a sigh of relief. Now, it's been 2 years. Yesterday was the anniversary of October 7th. It's been 2 years. I think that people will agree with me on this, particularly those who have been very involved in following this conflict. It feels like 20 years and all the same day, all at the same time. One long day. And I am glad that it is over. I am glad that I don't have to I'm glad that it's over. And I just wanted to say, I know that I've had some strong opinions on it, and whether you agree with those opinions or you don't, or you agree a little bit, or you agree a lot, whatever it happens to be, I just wanted to say thank you for sticking with me, since I admit I've been a little bit overexcitable about it, largely in reaction to the public's reaction. So I readily admit that I've been excitable on this topic, particularly on Twitter, but also on YouTube. And I'm aware, of course, that that's rubbed some people the wrong way. A lot of people have been very, very grateful for the things I've said. A lot of people have not. I know that. And I just want to take a moment to say that I hope that we have the best going forward for the Palestinian and the Israeli people, and that something I shouldn't say the Palestinian people, the people of Gaza, because there's people obviously in the West Bank and Jordan, all over. So I should say the people of Gaza. And I hope for the best outcome for everyone. And outside of that, I'm probably not going to be talking about it a whole lot. It's not my wheelhouse. I'm not a Middle East scholar. It is, of course, relevant to angelic magic, but you're here for magic. So anyways, so that's all I'm going to say about it. I'm glad the war's over. Thank you, everyone, for hanging in there when I've kind of gone off on some tangents about it, because I did. And I am thankful if you're still with me. All right, let's get into the Pantacle, Chapter 9. We are on Crowley's Book 4, Liber ABA, Section 2, Chapter 9. And for those who are just joining us, we've been doing a series on the magical implements. You can go back on the YouTube. There's tons. We've got all the other, we've got the wand, the circle, or excuse me, yeah, the wand, the circle, the temple, the cup, the dagger, and so you don't have to have watched those to watch these, but you should. Please go back and watch all of those. I'm going to make a playlist once these are all done. All right. So that's what this is, and I've seen some people saying on comments and on the Discord that they've been following along in their own book at home. That's great, because I go on tangents and I add my commentary, as I am, as it is important for me to do. Okay. The Pantacle. This is really cool. I have a teleprompter now, and I get to control it with a PlayStation 4 controller while I'm looking at the camera. That makes streaming really, really fun. The teleprompter part is just the text of Crowley, and then I go off. I haven't scripted anything. I'm just reading Crowley's text and doing it in a way that I don't have to look at a book. All right. As the magic cup is the heavenly food of the magus, so is the magic pantacle his earthly food. The wand was his divine force, and the sword his human force. The cup is hollow to receive the influence from above. The pantacle is flat, like the fertile plains of earth. The name Pantacle implies an image of the all, omni in parvo, but this is by a magical transformation of the Pantacle. Just as we made the sword symbolical of everything by the force of our magic, so do we work upon the Pantacle. Just as we made the sword, that which is merely a piece of common bread shall be the body of God. What the? All this, okay. Come on. PlayStation controller integration. Oh, Lord have mercy. Okay, there we go. Nope. What? My God. I'm going to have to switch to the keyboard. Hold on. All right. So not to keep you waiting while we're doing that, I think I saw Alex ask, is this text online? Yes, you can find this text online for free. I believe it's public domain now. It's at hermetic.com, which is an excellent website. You can also get it on Sacred Texts. Textuses. Those are two classic websites that have been on the internet since the 90s. They're great resources. And also, of course, you can just buy the book, Liber ABA, the big blue brick, as it's called, on Amazon. It's about $80, but worth it. Or I'm sure you can get a cheaper one on eBay or something like that. So, yeah, that'll do it. That'll do it. Come on. Come on. All right. All right. All right, so let's recap a little bit. Whoa, are we still streaming? What the? Man. Okay, you guys can still see me, right? It says YouTube's not receiving enough video. What? Okay, there we go. What can I say, guys? All right, I actually have no idea why that's happening. All right, let's get back to it. The wand was the will of man, his wisdom, his words. His word. The cup was his understanding. The vehicle of grace. The sword was his reason, and the pantacle shall be his body, the temple of the Holy Ghost. So let's read that again. The wand was the will of man. So this is a quick recap of the four weapons. So will, the magician's will. or wisdom, as it is connected with Hokmah. The cup was understanding, connected with Bina, or the vehicle of grace, that the receptive faculty, or the intuition. The sword was his reason, or analytic faculty. And the Pantacle shall be his body, the temple of the Holy Ghost. What is the length of this temple? So interestingly enough, we've already discussed the temple itself as the incarnation of the magician, but here he says the Pantacle is the actual body of the magician. So the larger temple is, interesting that perhaps an as above, so below thing, the larger temple is one's incarnation, the Pantacle is one's body. But more than that, as we shall see. What is the length of this temple? From north to south. What is the breadth of this temple? From east to west. What is the height of this temple? From the abyss to the abyss. There is therefore nothing movable or immovable under the whole firmament of heaven, which is not included in this Pantacle, though it be but 8 inches in diameter, and in thickness 1/2 inch. So the most classic example of the Pantacle, and I was looking for mine, for some reason I can't find it, is the Sigillum de Ameth, which is the classic John Dee sigil. You've all seen it. It's been used in a billion album covers and things like that. That represents the construction of the universe, essentially, and has the Star of Babylon in it, and many, many names of angels and all of that. It's essentially a map of the universe, which is what the Pantacle on one level is meant to be. And they're made out of beeswax, solid beeswax, which you pretty much have to do yourself. It's not that complicated. You need a beeswax pouring kit and a stove and an 8-inch pie plate. And that's pretty much all you need. You can go to a candle making facility and they will tell you how to do it. Beeswax is wonderful to work with. All right. Fire is not matter at all. Water is a combination of elements. Air, almost entirely a mixture of elements. Earth contains all, both in admixture and in combination. So must it be with this Pantacle, the symbol of earth. And as this Pantacle is made of pure wax, do not forget that everything that lives is holy. So pop quiz, some of you may remember when we were discussing the circle, we were discussing the candles that go around the circle. And if you remember, these also were made of beeswax, which represents the leftover shell of light after the buzzing of the mind has been silenced. So here that is connecting here. All right, all phenomena are sacraments. Every fact, okay, this is critical. We're going to spend some time on this because this is critical. Let me read this first. All phenomena are sacraments. Every fact and even every falsehood must enter into the Pantacle. It is the great storehouse from which the magician draws. Okay, let's talk about that. When you're born, how much do you know about the world? About a jack over shit, right? Mostly the second part, as your beleaguered parents will have to deal with, and then they'll have to deal with the second half when you're a teenager. So, as one grows, however, when you're a kid, as soon as you get a sense of the world and the universe, you have a model of it, of the universe and your place in it. And that model grows, doesn't it? As you get older, you go to school, you have experiences, you get a job, you get fired, you fall in love, you get your heart broken, over and over, and you travel, you meet people, you have relationships of various types with people, you read, you watch movies. You listen to music. You're constantly taking in, you read the news. You're constantly taking in information. And all of that information is changing your model, your mental model, your mental representation of the world. Okay, now, when you do magic, what are you doing? All details aside, you're taking a mental model of the world and attempting to change it into a different one. So you would better make sure that your mental model of the world, in the same way as it works the same way as a voodoo doll, You had better make damn sure that your mental model of the world comes as close as possible to the real thing, as much as you can, because we can't perfectly. And particularly now, where information is constantly coming out. Knowledge doth, which must be synthesized into understanding and then wisdom. But he says here, interestingly enough, all phenomena are sacraments. That means you don't really pick or choose, right? Or rather, you're always learning. And whenever you're learning, whenever you are learning, you are often learning what to do and also often learning what not to do. So we discussed in the dagger, the previous video, about how the dagger is used in a sense to make markings on the pantacle, and it must be used to keep out that which does not belong on it. But in a sense, he's also saying here that even that which does not belong essentially helps in forming the pantacle. So to reread this statement, all phenomena are sacraments. Every fact and even every falsehood must enter into the pantacle. It is the great storehouse from which the magician draws. So this is a point on which I don't even like saying thelema, which I should make clear, because I am not like, I may well be a representative of the highest thelemic body, but I'm not in the OTO or anything like that. And the AA, as far as I'm concerned, spans beyond just Crowley. It is a transdimensional organization of which yours truly has been hard at work for a couple decades now. Or the Invisible College, as the Rosicrucians put it. And it takes many names in many different places throughout history, and geography and symbols of religions are different all over the world. So it manifests in many different ways. Thelema and Crowley are only one external manifestation. They're even only one external manifestation of the Western esoteric path. They're not the be-all, end-all. It's just a data point within the ongoing path. However, I tend to go back to it a lot, largely because Crowley was really, really, really smart. And say whatever else you will about him, he very much updated the formula of Western initiation, or rather expressed it in a better way. Now, key to that is the difference between, we could get technical and talk about the LVX and Knox signs, but rather than getting technical, I will just say as follows. The metaphysics on which Crowley is operating, and this is a good metaphysics, is to see and embrace the world as it is. Nature unveiled. Isis unveiled, as Blavatsky said. It's to see and embrace the world as it is. Now, that doesn't mean you approve of everything that happens, because there's a lot of horrible things that happen in this world. But it means as much as possible that you attempt to remove your individual ego and personality and prejudices and likes and dislikes from your model of the world, because those are personal to you and you're only one of 7 billion and growing people, all of whom represent equally valid vantage points on reality. And that's just people. We're not talking about animals or non-humans. Hold on, like Charles the dog who needs to be let out. Come on. Go. Speaking of the AA, all right, so that means embracing the world as it is. Now, in the Eastern traditions talk about this a lot. So, for instance, in the higher reaches of both Hinduism and Buddhism, you get Tantra, right? So Buddhist Tantra, which is it's different. Hinduism and Buddhism, they're different paths. Or the most extreme version of Tantra in Hinduism is Agora. And I am an initiated Agori also by Paglananda Baba in Kathmandu when I was there with Genesis Peorage in 2010 or whenever that, 2010. So, and I've been there multiple times. The Agori are infamous for meditating in graveyards, on human corpses, and that type of thing. And one of the reasons what they're doing there is not being metal and ghoulish, although some do. Anyways, what they're doing there is not being metal and ghoulish. What they're doing there, ideally, is meditating on reality as it is, including the parts we don't like to think about. So in this culture, for instance, in America, we don't think about death. This has been observed since there was a great book in the 50s called The American Way of Death, where death is completely abstracted from the average American's experience and hidden away. And that's very, very unhealthy for people. Now, this is a very, very different... So, in a way, that is what he's saying when he says all phenomena are sacraments. Now, we have an even more fun way of doing this in the Western tradition, which is through the symbol of Babylon, who is, of course, also the central symbol of the Pantacle par excellence, John Dee's Sigillum de Ameth, which I think is appropriate here, because Babylon, which is the Whore of Babylon from the Book of Revelations, represents, at least in a philosophical way, we don't need to talk about magic, but in a philosophical way, represents accepting all phenomenon. And the formula of Babylon is of constant copulation upon all phenomenon, meaning you take it all in, and thereby expand your awareness to the point where it shatters your individual vantage point. And you want, to understand, embrace, and to a sense embody the universe. You want to be... This is why it's so important, when you get in the lower grades, so to speak, you get kind of these exercises like personality shifting or challenging thoughts with opposite thoughts or taking on different viewpoints from your own. A lot of that, what the point of that is not just to do that just to shake yourself up. It's also just to learn more and understand, if we look at this Pantacle behind me, it has all these are fake runes, but on each rune has an opposite number on the other side of the Pantacle. So no matter what you learn, posit, whatever philosophy you follow, whatever religion you follow, whatever mystical visions you think you've had, dreams, your story you tell about yourself, the story you tell yourselves about other people, the story you tell yourself about events in your life and how they've gone, and particularly the ones that keep you up at 4 a.m. No matter what it is, there's an equal and opposite one, because everything manifests as duality below the abyss. And it's important to understand that. And this is also what the Buddha is talking about when he is saying that, in a sense, enlightenment rests beyond craving and aversion. Meaning, your personal preferences on what reality are, that just fogs up the glass. That's a better way to put it, right? If you think of the Pantacle as representing the universe that you are trying to observe dispassionately, like a scientist, and then perhaps even change, at least in regards to your specific vantage point on it. We currently have 56 concurrent viewers, which is the mystical number of Nuit, who is also Babylon 156 when Quoth, the moon, 100 is added. But anyways, you kind of get the idea. We're attempting to be dispassionate scientists to understand the world, at the very least, to have a kind of, if you want to talk about gnosis and Gnosticism, well, the will of God is all around you. God doesn't speak to you in directly. God speaks to you as your experience. God speaks to you as your experience. Now notice I didn't say through your experience. I said as your experience, because it's the entire thing. No matter good or bad, whatever you happen to think of it. God speaks to you as your experience. So that experience had better be pretty wide. And in a more basic sense, one of the best things you can do as a young magician is not magic, but, it's like you get out of high school, whatever it happens to be, college, whatever it is, and you throw yourself into the world. Go work a bunch of jobs, go meet a bunch of people, have relationships, travel the world. Try to understand the world from as many different viewpoints as you can. And the best way to do that is travel and talking to people. You're not going to expand your mind with books or drugs nearly as much as you will simply traveling and talking to people who have very, very different life experiences than you. And that's the trick, right? Getting into a space where you can talk to people who have completely different life experiences from you is a harder trick these days, because we have the internet where people are narrowcasted to people who mostly agree with them. The same with social media algorithms. And people don't go outside and meet each other because they're all terrified of each other now because of COVID and shootings and all of that. And even travel is harder, right? And it's only gotten to wander the world and be free has only gotten progressively difficult as time goes on. On my podcast, I interviewed a guy who was a hobo who hopped the rails all throughout the mid 20th century. And he was a contemporary of Jack Kerouac, and he was telling me about even earlier hobos in the World War I period and all that. And he said that, imagine that. Their life consisted, they had a whole life of just hopping trains and going all over the country, doing whatever they wanted. And he said, it's not possible anymore. There's nowhere you can go now that's not surveilled, clocked, monocultured. It's the same stores everywhere. I don't want to get on a tangent there, but there you have it. So the mental model of the universe must be expanded in every way possible. And so let's recap, right? It's expanded by understanding a few things. One is it's beyond your personal preferences. And in fact, your personal preferences are just dirt on the glass of the microscope. Okay, that's one. The next is your mental model of the universe should be expanded, and I at least personally take this as a kind of ethical absolute, should be expanded as much as possible. And that means learning about your world. It means learning about yourself and learning about your world, exploring inner space and outer space. All right. And also remembering that whatever we're thinking currently definitely has an opposite. So those likes and dislikes are progressively destroyed, as they should be, as you take in more data. And that data is synthesized from knowledge into understanding and thereby to wisdom. All right, carrying on. In the brown cakes of corn we shall taste the food of the world and be strong. I believe that's biblical, but correct me if I'm wrong. We have avoided dealing with the Pantacle as the paten of the sacrament. Those special instructions about it are given in Liber Legis. It is composed of meal, honey, wine, holy oil, and blood. So he's speaking about cakes of light, which are used in a couple different Thelemic rituals. One is the Gnostic Mass, which is a beautiful ritual, worth seeing at least once in your life, and the Mass of the Phoenix. And they're just little cookies that are made to certain parameters and are very interesting. So it's the magical version of the communion wafer, which is also a type of pantacle, right? When speaking of the cup, it was shown how every fact must be made significant, how every stone must have its proper place in the mosaic. Woe were one stone misplaced. But that mosaic cannot be wrought at all, well or ill, unless every stone be there. These stones are the simple impressions or experiences. Not one may be foregone. Let me reread that, because it's what's important here, the most critical thing here is what you do going forward and how you approach the expansion of your consciousness going forward. These stones are the simple impressions or experiences. Not one may be foregone. Do not refuse anything merely because you know that it is the cup of poison offered by your enemy. Drink it with confidence. It is he that will fall dead. So he's not being literal here. But he's saying, and this goes along with the formula of Babylon as well, it's just embrace the world. Embrace life. This is where Magick differs very fundamentally from Buddhism, from really a lot of religions, from Christianity in many regards, and certainly from Gnostic Christianity. Although it is Gnostic in many regards, it is not anti-world, very far from it. And I think that that's the correct way to approach it. It's not a path of asceticism, because think about it. If you're a monk in a monastery, there's a certain dualistic assumption there that God is not in the world. Well, that's just not true, right? So you're dividing things. You're using the dagger too much. You're dividing yourself not just from the world, but you're dividing, or you're making the assumption that there are divisions in how God speaks, and that there is good and bad. And so while of course good and evil are real and do exist, and are critical, navigating good and evil and one's own ethical and moral sense of things, which is critical and is best adopted from an outside structure like religion or philosophy, instead of trying to invent it on your own. Good and evil are critical for human existence, but from God's eye, it's like looking at an ant colony. All right. How can I give Cambodian art its proper place in art if I have never heard of Cambodia? How can the geologist estimate the age of what lies beneath the chalk, unless he have a piece of knowledge totally unconnected with geology, the life history of the animals of whom that chalk is the remains? So there he's saying, it's like, yeah, you need, and by the way, don't become a narrow specialist. Learn everything about everything. If you want to learn about the universe, you have to learn about everything. Because you'll never be able to guess in advance what lines up to create sparks of genius also. For instance, the most classic example of this is Steve Jobs, when he was, prior to inventing, or rather marketing the Apple Macintosh, he took a calligraphy course in college. And it was that one elective course that he took that gave him the insight to put fonts in computers and changed the way all of our lives, right? Imagine using computers and they're literally only typewriter monotype font forever. All right. But those were two utterly disconnected things. And one of the strategies of genius, one of the definitions of genius, is the ability to take two things from totally different walks of life and combine them and get a third out of them. That is genius. Most people are not capable of this, which is why they combine things without adding inspiration, which Crowley discusses also in the formula of the Tetragrammaton, where specifically, well, there's no shin, right? So that most people are capable only of creating only by combining, right? Now, what's an example of that? Reddit, right? Check out my, it's like here's my mashup of Super Mario Brothers and Alien 3. Here's my mashup of, Lana Del Rey, but it sounds like Batman singing. Whatever it is. So it's just combining two things that already exist and are known quantities to create the effect that something new, the illusion that something new has been created, but actually nothing has been created. Whereas genius is to take multiple things and then create something new that partakes of both of them, but is not either one of them. It's to make the concepts actually breed. All right. This then is a very great difficulty for the magician. He cannot possibly have all experience, and though he may console himself philosophically with the reflection that the universe is conterminous with such experience as he has, he will find it grow at such a pace during the early years of his life that he may almost be tempted to believe in the possibility of experiences beyond his own. And from a practical standpoint, he will seem to be confronted with so many avenues of knowledge that he will be bewildered which to choose. The ass hesitated between two thistles. How much more that greater ass, that incomparably greater ass, between 2,000? And by the way, if you haven't read The Golden Ass, which is a classic of Roman magic, extremely funny book. Fortunately, means donkey. Fortunately, it does not matter very much, but he should at least choose those branches of knowledge which abut directly upon universal problems. What does he mean here? You can't know everything. You'll never know everything. But in the things that you take on as personal interests, you should probably pick things which directly address at least trying to understand the nature of the universe. Science, physics, philosophy, not cataloging Labubu's, although I'm sure that's fun. He should choose not one but several, and these should be as diverse as possible in nature. It is important that he should strive to excel in some sport, and that sport should be the one best calculated to keep this body in health. He should have a thorough grounding in classics, mathematics, and science. Well, I agree, by the way. Thank you, Ryan, very much. Very much appreciated. I will return to your question. Please super chat, everyone. It very much helps support what I'm doing here, which is, I probably spend infinitely more on making these than anything that I make off YouTube. So much appreciated. Where he says here he should have a thorough grounding in classics, mathematics, and science. Let me tell you something, particularly for Americans. If you take the time and effort to give yourself a basic-ass education, like to the level that would have been a high school education at the beginning of the 20th century, you will soar past your peers. So if you take if you even just take your own lifelong education and lifelong learning as a mandate, which it is, and you do, for instance, what he's saying here, just, you know that you've read the classic works. No one does that anymore. Have you read the Bible? Have you read the Iliad? Have you read the Odyssey? Have you read Shakespeare? Have you read Petronius Arbiter? Have you read all this, right? We have, are you even aware of what the Western literary tradition is? I have an English degree, and there's tons I haven't read, right? And that I am not caught up on. Modern literature, by and large, is worthless, by the way. Not always, but very often. But go on Khan Academy. It's free. Online learning. You can get a complete education, K through 12, on Khan Academy. And you can go take lectures for free from Yale or Harvard on iTunes. The world is at your fingertips. So just to do that will put you head and shoulders above the people around you. Because what are they doing? Wait for it. And that doesn't add anything to your brain. It just erases. All right. He should also have enough general knowledge of modern languages and of the shifts of life to enable him to travel in any part of the world with ease and security. History and geography he can pick up as he wants them. And what should interest him most in any subject is its links with some other subject, so that his Pantacle may not lack for what painters call composition. He will find that, however good his memory may be, 10,000 impressions enter his mind for every one that it is able to retain even for a day. And the excellence of a memory lies in the wisdom of its selection. And yes, that is a Kabbalistic comment. From knowledge is synthesized into understanding, and from understanding, though that which is actually worth operationalizing is selected by wisdom. The excellence of a memory lies in the wisdom of its selection. Hokmah. The best memories so select and judge that practically nothing is retained which has not some coherence with the general plan of the mind. All Pantacles will contain the ultimate conceptions of the circle and the cross, though some will prefer to replace the cross by a point, or by a tau, or by a triangle. The Vesica Pisces is aka the Jesus fish. The Vesica Pisces is sometimes used instead of the circle, or the circle may be glyphed as a serpent. Time and space and the idea of causality are sometimes represented. So also are the three stages in the history of philosophy, in which the three objects of study were successively nature, God, and man. The duality of consciousness is also sometimes represented, and the tree of life itself may be figured therein, or the categories. An emblem of the great work should be added, but the Pantacle will be imperfect unless each idea is contrasted in a balanced manner with its opposite, and unless there is a necessary connection between each pair of ideas and every other pair. All right, so part of the context here is that He's talking about a specific task, which the neophyte in the AA must do, which is the neophyte is constructed or is instructed to construct their own pantacle, their own specific one, and to design upon it, similar to something like that, a symbol or a set of symbols that represents the entire universe. Okay, so that's the context of what he's talking about. The neophyte will perhaps do well to make the first sketches for his pantacle very large and complex, subsequently simplifying, not so much by exclusion as by combination, just as a zoologist, beginning with the 4 great apes and man, combines all in the single word primate. It is not wise to simplify too far, since the ultimate hieroglyphic must be an infinite. Or meaning, he's saying you could just write an infinity symbol and be done with it, right? So that's simplifying it too much. The ultimate resolution not having been performed, its symbol must not be portrayed. The ultimate resolution not having been performed, its symbol must not be portrayed. If any person were to gain access to VVVVV, the motto of the chief of the AA, or the light of the world himself, and ask him to discourse upon any subject, there is little doubt that he could only comply by an unbroken silence. And even that might not be wholly satisfactory, since the Tao Te Ching says that the Tao cannot be declared either by silence or by speech. In this preliminary task of collecting materials, the idea of the ego is not of such great moment. All impressions are phases of the non-ego, and the ego serves merely as a receptacle. In fact, to the well-regulated mind, there is no question but that the impressions are real, and that the mind, if not a tabula rasa, is only not so because of the tendencies or innate ideas, which tendencies means skandhas, a Buddhist concept, meaning the karmic inertia of the mind. Let me go back and read the sentence because it's complex. In fact, to the well-regulated mind, there is no question but that the impressions are real, and that the mind, if not a tabula rasa, is only not so because of the tendencies or innate ideas which prevent some ideas from being received as readily as others. These tendencies must be combated. So tendencies means, let's just keep it simple, right, and not get into Buddhism, but tendencies here means your tendencies of thinking, your conditioned mental ruts. Where do you constantly go back to? What do you ruminate on? What do you, how do you react to the same, there's lots of stimuli that you probably react to the same way every time you see that stimuli, right? If you're American, you've been trained to just about lose your damn mind when you see anything relating to the opposite political party of you whatsoever, right? Now you've been trained, you have a tendency to identify with one of the two parties. This is more true depending on every successive generation of Americans has less and less identified with politics, but that's a very, very basic example. These tendencies must be combated. Distasteful facts should be insisted upon until the ego is perfectly indifferent to the nature of its food. We discussed this, meaning you have to polish the lens of your microscope by removing the encrustations of your largely random mental tendencies, which have been created by accident of birth and socialization. Even as the diamond shall glow red for the rose, and green for the rose leaf, so shalt thou abide apart from the impressions. The great task of separating the self from the impressions, or vrittis, which is the Hindu term for it, is one of the many meanings of the aphorism salve, corresponding to the coagula implied in samadhi. And this pantacle therefore represents all that we are, the resultant of all that we had a tendency to be. So notice what he just did there. He just took symbols, it's similar to what he was saying with the pantacle, of essentially assembling it by the combination of symbols. He's taking, in one or two sentences, major concepts from Buddhism, Hinduism, and Hermeticism and blending them all into the exact same thing, which he was phenomenal at doing. In the Dhammapada, which is one of the classic text of the first turning of the Dharma, the first version of Buddhism. In the Dhammapada we read, all that we are from mind results. All that we are from mind results. On mind is founded, built of mind. Who acts or speaks with evil thought, him doth pain follow, sure and blind. So the ox plants his foot, and so the car wheel follows hard behind. All that we are from mind results. On mind is founded, built of mind. Who acts or speaks with righteous thought, who acts or speaks with righteous thought, him happiness doth surely find. So failing not the shadow falls forever in its place assigned. The Pantacle is then, in a sense, identical with the karma or kama of the magician. Kama is the Pali version. The karma of man is his ledger. The balance has not been struck, and he does not know what it is. He does not even fully know what debts he may have to pay, or what is owed him. Nor does he know on what dates even those payments which he anticipates may fall due. Yeah, no one knows the workings of karma. No mortal can ever understand it. But it is unerring. A business conducted on such lines would be in a terrible mess, and we find, in fact, that man is in just such a mess. While he is working day and night at some unimportant detail of his affairs, some giant force may be advancing pede claudo to overtake him. Many of the entries in this ledger are for the ordinary man necessarily illegible. The method of reading them is given in that important instruction of the AA called Thisharb. So Thisharb is, as we've actually mentioned on the stream already in relation to Scientology, is a book about teaching yourself to think backwards so that you can remember prior incarnations, or what appears to be prior incarnations generated by the mind. Thank you, occultology. Yes, Aleph is infinity in mathematic notation. Aleph null. Now, consider that this karma is all that a man has or is. His ultimate object is to get rid of it completely. When it comes to the point of surrendering, and to surrender all, one must give up not only the bad, but the good, not only weakness, but strength. And how can the mystic surrender all while he still clings to his virtues? Let me read that again. How can the mystic surrender all while he clings to his virtues? How can the mystic surrender all while he clings to his virtues? Very Crowleyan point. And that goes in line with our discussion on the path of no distinction and Babylon and so forth. His ultimate object is to get rid of his karma completely. When it comes to the point of surrendering the self to the beloved, the point is to get rid of your karma by surrendering the self to the beloved. But in the beginning, the magician is not that self, capital S. He is only the heap of refuse from which that self is to be built up. Yes, go watch the other videos. Go watch the other videos. We've talked about this many times. And it's a critical point for understanding the path and not getting swept up in somebody's non-dual sales funnel. The magical instruments must be made before they are destroyed. This idea of karma has been confused by many who ought to have known better, including the Buddha, with the ideas of poetic justice and of retribution. We have the story of one of the Buddha's arahats, meaning saints, or realized ones, who being blind and walking up and down unwittingly killed a number of insects. The Buddhist regards the destruction of life as the most shocking crime. His brother arahats inquired as to how this was, and Buddha spun them a long yarn as to how in a previous incarnation he had maliciously deprived a woman of her sight. This is only a fairy tale, a bogey to frighten the children, and probably the worst way of influencing the young, yet devised by human stupidity. Karma does not work in this way at all. In any case, moral fables have to be very carefully constructed, or they may prove dangerous to those who use them. You will remember Bunyan's passions and patience. Naughty Passion played with all his toys and broke them. Good little Patience put them carefully aside. Bunyan forgets to mention that by the time Passion had broken all his toys, he had outgrown them. Karma does not act in this tit-for-tat way. An eye for an eye is a sort of savage justice, and the idea of justice in our human sense is quite foreign to the constitution of the universe. We've discussed this. I've discussed this already. Karma is and this is absolutely true, karma is the law of cause and effect. Hear me there. Karma is the law of cause and effect. Yeah, it's the second law of thermodynamics applied to human action. So karma largely means, a way to look at it is inertia, right? If you do the same action many, many, many times, habitually, it will become a karmic pattern. It's now ingrained, it's conditioned, and you have the karma of doing this into the future. Karma is simply nothing ever ends. The past is always with us, determining the future. Karma is the law of cause and effect. There is no proportion in its operations. Once an accident occurs, it is impossible to say what may happen, and the universe is a stupendous accident. We go out to tea 1,000 times without mishap, and the 1,001st time we meet someone who changes radically the course of our lives forever. There is a sort of sense in which every impression that is made upon our minds is the resultant of all the forces of the past. No incident is so trifling that it has not in some way shaped one's disposition. But there is none of this crude retribution about it. One may kill 100,000 lice in one brief hour at the foot of the Baltoro Glacier, as Frater Perdurabo, meaning Crowley, once did. It would be stupid to suppose, as the theosophist inclines to suppose, that this action involves one in the doom of being killed by a louse 100,000 times. This ledger of karma is kept separate from the petty cash account, or as we know it these days, Venmo. So it's like your bank account versus your Venmo. This ledger of karma is kept separate from the petty cash account, and in respect of bulk, this petty cash account is very much bigger than the ledger. If we eat too much salmon, we get indigestion and perhaps nightmare. It is silly to suppose that a time will come when a salmon will eat us and find us disagreeable. On the other hand, we are always being terribly punished for actions that are not faults at all. Even our virtues rouse insulted nature to revenge. Karma only grows by what it feeds on, and if karma is to be properly brought up, it requires a very careful diet. With the majority of people, their actions cancel each other out. Yes, no sooner is effort made than it is counterbalanced by idleness. Yes, this is something we keep coming back to, and that I teach at Magick.me about binding opposites. Eros gives place to anteros. Not one man in 1,000 makes even apparent escape from the commonplace of animal life. Birth is sorrow, life is sorrow. Sorrowful are old age, disease, and death, but resurrection is the greatest misery of all. Oh, what misery! Birth incessantly, as Buddha said. One goes on from day to day with a little of this and a little of that, a few kind thoughts and a few unkind thoughts. Nothing really gets done. Body and mind are changed beyond recall by nightfall. But what meaning has any of this change? How few there are who can look back through the years and say that they have made advance in any definite direction. And in how few is that change, such as it is, a variable with intelligence and conscious volition? The dead weight of the original conditions under which we were born has counted for far more than all our striving. Let me read that again, because it's sad but true, and you should understand this in terms of assessing what you're doing. The dead weight of the original conditions under which we were born has counted for far more than all our striving. The unconscious forces are incomparably greater than those of which we have any knowledge. This is the solidity of our Pantacle, the karma of our earth that whirls us willy-nilly around her axis at the rate of 1,000 miles an hour. And 1,000 is Aleph, a capital Aleph, the microcosm of all wandering air, the fool of the tarot, the aimlessness and fatality of things. It is very difficult then in any way to fashion this heavy Pantacle, meaning good luck shaping your karma. Nevertheless, you must try. But just in trying, do as Machiavelli did, I tell you, and aim above the mark, so that if you miss, you hit the mark. We can engrave characters upon it with the dagger, but they will scarcely come to more than did the statue of Ozymandias, King of Kings, in the midst of the unending desert. One of the most important poems ever written in the English language, Ozymandias by Percy Shelley. Look it up if you haven't read it. We cut a figure on the ice. It is effaced in a morning by the tracks of other skaters. Nor did that figure do more than scratch the surface of the ice, and the ice itself must melt before the sun. Indeed, the magician may despair when he comes to make the Pantacle. Meaning, you're thrown into life, you have a largely complete, your set of circumstances is largely completely outside of your control, and most people make zero progress in changing or shaping their destiny, because as soon as they do something, they tend to do the opposite, right? Because they're not aware of the the opposite or dual nature of reality, which you, as a magician, pretty well as good as his brothers. But for that Pantacle to be in any way fashioned to a willed end, or even to an intelligible end, or even to a known end, hoc opus hic labor est. Forgive my Latin. It is indeed the toil of ascending from Avernus and escaping to the upper air, Avernus meaning the inferno. In order to do it... Uh-oh. What? Am I not streaming? Come on, come on, come on. Come on now, come on. What in God's green earth? That should kick in soon. Okay, I think... What in tarnation? Okay, I think I'm streaming. It says poor quality. Okay. Hopefully, okay. Back, excellent. I don't know, guys. I think I have a VPN on. But if I turn it off, it will block, it will it will end the stream. Okay. Let's back up a little bit so that you don't miss anything. All right, so that you get the gist. Indeed, the magician may despair when he comes to make the Pantacle. Everyone has the material. One man's pretty well as good as his brother's. But for that Pantacle to be in any way fashioned to a willed end, or even to an intelligible end, or even to a known end, hoc opus hic labor est, it is indeed the toil of ascending from Avernus and escaping to the upper air. In order to do it, it is most necessary to understand our tendencies and to will the development of one, the destruction of another. That's critical. Meaning, everything in your existence must balance out. So if you're adopting, and the most, even go back to Liber MMM, right? Liber Null and Psychonaut. Okay, it says we have excellent quality. If you want to add something, if you want to build a new habit, the best way to do that is to also drop a habit. Drop a habit, gain a new habit. Or if you're doing magic for love, you better watch out what hate is doing and drop it out of your life. In order to do it, it is most necessary to understand our tendencies and to will the development of one, the destruction of another. Some people say they have sound issues, and this is resolved by closing the app and then reopening it. And though all elements in the Pantacle must ultimately be destroyed, yet some will help us directly to reach a position from which this task of destruction becomes possible, and there is no element therein which may not be occasionally helpful. And so, beware! Select, select, select. This Pantacle is an infinite storehouse. Things will always be there when we want them. We may see to it occasionally that they're dusted and the moth kept out, but we shall usually be too busy to do much more. Remember that in traveling from the earth to the stars, or in Latin, per agua per astra, remember that in traveling from the earth to the stars, one dare not be encumbered with too much heavy luggage. Nothing that is not a necessary part of the machine should enter into its composition. Now, though this pantacle is composed only of shams, some shams somehow seem to be more false than others. The whole universe is an illusion, but it is an illusion difficult to get rid of. It is true compared with most things. But 99 out of every 100 impressions are false even in relation to the things on their own plane. Such distinctions must be graven deeply upon the surface of the pantacle by the holy dagger. There is only one other of the elemental instruments to be considered, namely the lamp. Okay, and with that, the chapter on the pantacle ends. The archons are once again trying to mess with the stream. Okay, let's go back. I'm going to do super chats first. Please super chat. It supports the channel and shows that you value what I'm doing here. And we'll get your question answered right away. All right, so Ryan Laugh says, can you touch on the whole coins original, Pantacles, RWS, more earthy vibes, discs, Thoth, RWS for Rider-Waite Smith, whenever it makes sense in this question. So if I understand your question correctly, it's the original name of the suit of pentacles in the tarot, which notice he didn't mention. We're talking about the Pantacle with an A, but it was originally coins. In the Rider-Waite Smith, it was discs, and then in the Thoth disc, and so it was coins in the original, pentacles in the Rider-Waite Smith, and then discs in the Thoth tarot. I don't know. I don't know why they changed the names. I wish I had a pithy answer for you, but I can run to ChatGPT just as fast as you can. But that's very fascinating to point out, and I'd actually never considered that. Why did they keep changing the names? Very interesting. And in fact, tell you what, I'll just throw this in the background. I'm just going to copy paste your question. Yeah, let's see what comes up. All right. Let's see. More super chats. Aleph is infinity in mathematic notation. Absolutely. All right. I'm going to go back. Now I'm going to go back from the most recent comment. Yeah, sorry about the sound and video issues. For some reason, it just decided to lag. Yeah, Ryan says, as somebody who works from home, shakes fist at Wi-Fi. Oh yeah, the video cut out because it's my karma. Very good. All right. Okay, so I got an answer for your question, however. So this is from Anthropic. The Earth suit evolved through 3 major naming phases, each reflecting different esoteric emphases. Coins, pre-1909, the traditional Italian tarot used denari for coins or money. This was the most literal representation, physical currency, material wealth, trade. The symbolism was straightforward and tied to medieval economic life. Okay, then Pentacles, Rider-Waite Smith, 1909. Pamela Coleman Smith and Arthur Edward Waite shifted to Pentacles with an E, to emphasize magical and spiritual dimensions of earthly matters. The 5-pointed star within the coin suggested the microcosm/macrocosm, or humanity reflecting divine order, the 4 elements plus spirit, protective magical symbolism, and manifestation of spiritual principles in material form. This made the suit more mystical while keeping its earthy, practical nature. The imagery shows craftspeople, merchants, and landowners engaged in physical work and tangible results. Then finally we have discs, and Here's why you can't rely on AI totally. It seems to think that the Thoth deck was created in 1969. No, it was the 40s. Crowley chose discs to break from Christian magical symbolism. Pentacles had Christian associations via ceremonial magic traditions. His reasoning, which it does not cite, okay, so we don't know if this is true, but it says his reasoning is that it's more abstract and universal, avoided specific religious iconography, emphasized the suit as representing crystallized energy and matter, aligned with his Thelemic philosophy, reflected geometric and astronomical principles, the disc as a primal form, meaning the Thoth deck's discs are more cosmic and elemental than Rider-Waite-Smith's pentacles, while the Rider-Waite-Smith's pentacles are more spiritually layered than traditional coins. There's your answer. I myself am not totally satisfied with it. I suspect there are much deeper reasons, but at this point, your research is as good as mine. Noodles of Mateo, interesting name, says, thank you for keeping the current. You're welcome. Thank you very much. TwitchX, thank you for the Canadian money, says, how does the dreamed experience impact the pentacle? It depends on the type of dream. There are many. The Tibetans have cataloged different levels of them. Most dreams are a processing or a working through of experience, in which case it is part of the brain's consolidation process. You need to dream in order to consolidate your sense impressions and store them in long-term memory, meaning dreaming is part of the gate to the pinnacle. That's interesting, right? And there are certain types of dreams which are rare, like prophetic dreams. Well, first of all, there's three types of dreams according to the Tibetans, and you can take my lucid dreaming course for more on this because there's a lot more. The first level is dreams that consolidate sense impressions. That's already related to the Pantacle because you're consolidating sense impressions into eventually what become glyphs representing eternal principles. The second type is karmic, which is not much less common with Westerners because Westerners, non-Buddhists, because Buddhists practice specific dream yoga techniques in order to continually work out karma while they're dreaming as well. So that's a dream in which you directly work through some karma in the dream world instead of in manifestation, and that, of course, also relates to one's karma. Finally, there is the prophetic dream, which is exceedingly rare, which is when new information enters your brain from seemingly outside, and that is an addition to the pinnacle by outside forces. So there you have it. Hopefully that answers your question. Ryan says, yeah, makes sense about the coins. Thanks for digging into that. I think the official publishing was 20 years post-death of Crowley. Well, maybe I assume it probably was published in 1969, at least a popular edition. So maybe that's why it's looking at the deck. All right. All right. I think that's pretty much it, unless I'm missing something. Somebody was saying Frauder RC had a good response, but I'm not sure what it was. What did you say that was so clever, Frauder RC? The spice is vice. It is by will alone I set my mind in motion. Yeah. Okay, so Frauder RC says, can we cling to virtues, or does that make them not virtues? It depends on what your structure is. Yeah, you can absolutely cling to virtues if you're thinking about the 7 classical virtues of Christianity. If you approach it from the Buddhist, if you approach it, however, from the angle that he's talking about, which is relating to the supernals, this is another reason why a tree of life is important, because different levels of initiation have completely different outlooks of reality depending on where you are on the tree. Meaning, somebody who is not even begun on the path can hear about how Bruce Lee said be like water and just adopted something from all martial arts techniques and created Jeet Kune Do and just flowed with it and no mind and and or that great athletes try, they try by not, they succeed by not trying. Well, good luck with that if you have no experience of the subject. You're just going to look like a fool, right? That level comes, and it's the same with mysticism. When people are like, oh, like, I just am one with the Tao, or however they express that. That's at the post-supernal level. Whereas the Christian virtues tend to relate to the cross of the elements and specifically to Ferrith. So you're working in the LVX instead of the Nox there. And so when Crowley is approaching this through a Buddhist framework, he's basically saying that the goal of Buddhism and Hinduism is to nullify your karma. It's to get it to zero, because their goal, remember, their goal is to, and their belief system is they want to cease not just mentation, but cease incarnation. So they're they don't want karma, because even if they have good karma, it's still pluses on the numbers, the whole number scale above zero. And you only get out through zero in their way of thinking. So if you looked at it from a Buddhist sense, then yes, clinging to virtues would not be virtuous, but it's not because the virtues aren't virtuous, it's because the act of clinging itself is a problem in Buddhism. Craving and aversion. It becomes just another object of desire. But this is also not fully true, because even in Buddhism, you have the 5 precepts, there are ethical frameworks, all of this, and progress is very hard without following them. So Ren Redemption says, thank you again for these. Grateful for your teaching style. It always helps these huge concepts click practically. You're welcome. Thank you. And of course, Magick.me, the website, magick.me. I have hundreds of hours at this point of step-by-step magical instruction where we take you from 0 to 60 and train you in the whole thing, so you're not just hearing me talk about magic, you're doing it and experiencing it in a way that is, as I hope you get the idea from just my YouTube, is completely relevant and applicable to your life. Not a fantasy, not a New Age store version of magic, but a type of magic that involves fully embracing and categorizing and optimizing your entire life, your entire human experience. As I hope you also get a sense of from these lectures. So magick.me, www.mag.ick.me, and you can get started for free at the link in the description, start.magick.me. Janet says, do you have a donation option on your website? Good question. I think you can donate on the channel. We probably should. People have said that to me many times. You can always donate here or contact us. Contact us offline, or contact Temple, and she will send you the PayPal address. There you go. If you would like to donate directly, which is nice because YouTube takes a cut of everything, every super chat, please talk to Temple, and she will send you the PayPal address. I very much appreciate that. It means a lot. All right. Ryan says, I'm about to take one of your classes, maybe Chaos first, to be weird. No, it's a good first class to take. I have 2 coding classes I'm finishing at the moment. Got to be realistic. Yeah. Magic is very much like code. Very much. Learning just the structure of, well, here. If you're into computer science, you may well have seen this classic, The Structure and Interpretation of Computer Programs. This is a book of pseudocode, meaning not actual code, or Lisp, which I actually have. I am old enough to have programmed and sonified the names of the archangels in Lisp at the University of California, Santa Cruz. back in the back in the day. But listen to this. Okay, this is just again. This is I think 1986 McGraw-Hill textbook, and it is about the deep structure. It's not about how to code. It's about the deep structure of code itself. All right. There is some wild, I want to make sure that I'm reading the right section because there's a billion prefaces, but there is a wild intro to this. Okay, here we are. It's actually chapter 1. Building abstractions with procedures. And we begin with a quote by John Locke, which completely is relevant to the Pantacle, oddly enough. The acts of the mind wherein it exerts its power over simple ideas are chiefly these three. 1, combining several simple ideas into one compound one, and thus all complex ideas are made. So that's the sigils on the Pantacle. 2, the second is bringing two ideas, whether simple or complex, together and setting them by one another so as to take a view of them at once, without uniting them into one, by which it gets all its ideas of relations. 3, the third is separating them from all other ideas that accompany them in their real existence. This is called abstraction, and thus all its general ideas are made. So that's John Locke, an essay concerning human understanding, 1690. Interesting indeed. There you go. Didn't choose this. Actually, not what I was going to read. Completely relevant to the Pantacle and even the use of the word understanding for the sigil of Babylon in the middle, and the condensation of symbols towards that. Very interesting. Once you understand Magick, everything is a occult text. Literally everything. It's really true. We are about to study the idea of a computational process. Computational processes are abstract beings that inhabit computers. As they evolve, processes manipulate other abstract things called data. The evolution of a process is directed by a pattern of rules called a program. Now, people create programs to direct processes. In effect, we conjure the spirits of the computer with our spells. As the Renaissance magician with the lambda. A computational process is indeed much like a sorcerer's idea of a spirit. It cannot be seen or touched. Imagine my reaction. Like, I can't escape the occult. I was like learning code. I just needed something different to focus on. There you go. There's no escape. A computational process is indeed much like a sorcerer's idea of a spirit. It cannot be seen or touched. It is not composed of matter at all. However, it is very real. It can perform intellectual work. It can answer questions. It can affect the world by disbursing money at a bank or by controlling a robot arm in a factory. The programs we use to conjure processes are like a sorcerer's spells. They are carefully composed from symbolic expressions in arcane and esoteric programming languages that prescribe the tasks we want our processes to perform. The computational process in a correctly working computer executes programs precisely and accurately. Thus, like the sorcerer's apprentice, novice programmers must learn to understand and to anticipate the consequences of their conjuring. Yes. Even small errors, usually called bugs or glitches in programs, can have complex and unanticipated consequences. Fortunately, learning to program is considerably less dangerous than learning sorcery. Try both. Because the spirits we deal with are conveniently contained in a secure way. Real-world programming, however, requires care, expertise, and wisdom. A small bug in a computer-aided design program, for example, can lead to the catastrophic collapse of an airplane or a dam or the self-destruction of an industrial robot. Interesting, right? Thank you, Sup. Much appreciated for the Mexican monies. I will come back to that question. So there's another way to look at the Pantacle, right? Computers, data storage, right? CD, or vinyl, obviously, but a CD or a disk drive, or now a solid state drive. It's related to Earth. What's a drive made out of? Silicon. It's Earth, right? The Earth element. Human beings somehow, this is how clever human beings how clever human beings are. We're carbon-based life forms. We figured out how to make intelligence out of a completely different part of the periodic table, silicon. Fascinating, right? The entire internet, the thing that we're talking on right now, that's running all of this, that runs our entire world now, is literally lightning being shot through compressed sand. All right, Sup says, thank you for these, Jason. Much appreciated. I remember Crowley recommending Vipassana. Do you think it can serve as a tool for discerning which impressions are truly worth engraving upon the Pantacle? Absolutely. And understanding your Pantacle and getting a sense of it. Yes, I absolutely do. And absolutely. 1000%. Vipassana, great. Great. If you get a chance to go on a Vipassana retreat, not if you've never meditated, but if you actually have meditation experience, I can only say good things about it. I never, like, don't join a cult, a Buddhist cult, obviously, but if you want to go get the experience, absolutely. I unreservedly recommend that. Ryan says, analogy, sigils on the Pantacles is code inside the function, abstraction, and nested syntax. Yeah, so I think my original point was, if you learn computer science, there's a reason why so many computer science and IT people are interested in this subject. It's that Kabbalah, in particular, is more or less an ordering of your mind to computational principles. It's ordering your mind in a series of folders, and the nested logical structure of computer code is very much reflected in these structures of Kabbalistic magic. It very much, I guarantee you, this stuff was created by people with the same ass mentality as IT guys now, just in the 12th century. And information theory itself originates from this is true, magical vision that Raymond Lull had on a mountain at Majorca in Spain, where he had a mystic vision where he saw the entire universe unfold before his eyes as a set of nested containers, much like a file system in a computer, or at that point, rudimentary information theory that became computer science. So, you know, Steve Jobs, acid head who went to India, created the Mac. The Apple Watch was invented by a pagan. Like, literally, there's almost nothing in computer science that is not touched by this stuff. And the more you look around, the more you'll see that. All right. Let's wrap it. I think we had a good chat. And please go to Magick.me, Magick.me. Our newest courses are the Adept Initiative 1 and 2, the remakes. They are phenomenal. Phenomenal. They will completely change your life, and there's many people on the chat here that can attest to that. Yes. Oh, Twitch says the shop on your website seems broken. Yeah, it was a Spotify shop that I was getting charged $50 a month for that wasn't really, it was just links to Amazon. So that will be back up soon. All right, everyone. Go to Magick.me. Go to start.magick.me. Get on the mailing list. You're getting an error 1000. Where are you getting an error 1000? Comes up for me. Yeah. So the shop, yeah, that was a Shopify shop that I have temporarily shut off because it's just charging me too much. All right. Good night. See you guys later.